Now, I probably traveled to every single coffee shop in Dallas County over this time, meeting with you and talking about the issues that Dallas County Democrats face, as well as why we need someone like Hillary to fight for us in the White House. It's how I was able to meet Bryce Smith and learn about his story as a young entrepreneur that has inspired me, as well as so many of you in this room, as well as Hillary Clinton herself. And another great thing about the Iowa caucus is that the caucus is an amazing organizing opportunity to engage in a dialogue with your neighbors about the issues that matter most to you. Now, you know as well as I do, Iowans don't just go to caucus. We caucus for a reason: to fight to make college more affordable, to tackle climate change, or to finally have equal pay for equal work. But we also know that we live in 2016, where it's easier to write a Facebook post about these issues than it is to attend a local meeting. And that's why we need you, not only to knock on doors and make phone calls with us, but to contact your neighbors where they often are, online. So now, it's gonna start right here with you guys. And if everyone in here can pull out your phones quickly, that thing that a teacher would never say, we get to break that rule now. And if you could text the word caucus to the number 47246 to join our online community and sign up for text message updates, that would be fantastic. And again, that number is 47246, and you text the word caucus, C-A-U-C-S, to that number. We'll also send you a friendly reminder of where your caucus location is, as well as what time you should arrive, which, for those of you that haven't heard us say it enough, is 7 p.m. You gotta be in line there. And while you have your phones out, you might as well go and look at our Facebook page, our Hillary for Iowa Facebook page, and follow our Twitter account with Hillary for Iowa. And I promise I will not be offended if you're looking at your phones for the next 30 seconds or so. And also, when you're next bowling with Bryce here, or grabbing a cup of coffee at the local coffee shop on the square, or as all of you will be doing these last few days, just knocking on doors and making phone calls for Hillary all day, every day, you can give this number to someone else to help them get out and caucus as well, and mobilize them and remind them about how important it is to attend this year's caucus. And as I said at the last Dallas County Central Committee meeting I attended a few weeks ago, I want to thank everyone here in this room for welcoming into your community over the last 9.5, 10 months and making me feel very at home here. It's been an honor for me to organize for Hillary Clinton these last 9.5 months, and it's been a huge pleasure to do it right here in Dallas County. And I cannot wait to celebrate our victory with all of you in just a couple days' time. Thank you so much.
Why they do the people wrong? Let's clean the world up before they so lucky now to have you all along, girl. I really love the way you love it, girl. Forever I'll be yours, baby. You blow my mind, baby. I'm so alive with you, baby. You blow my mind, baby. cares what they see? Who cares what they know? Your first name is free, last name is dumb. But you still believe in where we're from. Man's white flower, it's in every living thing. Mind, use your power. Spirit, use your wings. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Hold on to me. Oh, don't let me go. Cheetahs need to eat. Run antelope. Your first name is King. Last name is dumb. 'Cause you still believe in everyone. When the baby first breathes, when night sees sunrise, when the whale hugs the sea, when man recognizes freedom, 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 breathing. We are from heat, the electric one. Does it shock you, see? He left us the sun. Atoms in the air, organisms in the sea. Sun and yes man are made of the same things. Freedom, 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 freedom. Freedom, 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 freedom.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bryce Smith and Hillary Clinton.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Bryce Smith. I am the partnering owner and operator of the Adel Family Fun Center here. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I think this is the busiest my business has been since I bought it. So thank you all. I was honored back in 2015 in April to sit down at a small business roundtable invited by Secretary Clinton. And to sit down with small business owners, a lot like myself, to discuss issues that were pertinent to us in Iowa, small business in general. And I was so thankful to have a listening ear like Hillary Clinton, to listen to some of the issues that I brought up, like small business financing and how difficult it is to jump through hoops, especially as a young college-educated entrepreneur with a mountain of student loan debt. That was a very big challenge for me, and I think it was a good insight for Hillary Clinton. And I appreciate that, for her taking that time to listen to me. It's been one busy day and night setting up for this, and when I woke up this morning, I thought, man, I didn't get much sleep last night. But then I thought, you know, as a small business owner now for a little over a year, that's pretty routine. A lot of times I'm the one that opens the business, and then I'm the one that stays all day and closes the business. With a couple other employees who work hard with me, it's a passion of mine. So I don't almost call this a job, it's more of a love of what I enjoy to do. And when I sat down with Hillary Clinton back in April of last year, I got a sense of her compassion towards that. She understood where I came from. This isn't just how I support my family and me, but this is how I enjoy spending my time. And I could see at that table that she understood that. And the passion behind her matched my passion for my business. And I thanked her tremendously on that day, and at the end of that, she said that she would love to stop by my small business, and I said, I would love that too. And, you know, obviously before Monday, and I get a call. I get a call this last weekend. Oh, she's coming. Nothing motivates you more to clean a business like having a potential next president stop at your business. So with a lot more that I could say about her, I want to introduce a former First Lady, a former U.S. Secretary of State, a former U.S. Senator, and if we work hard on Monday, the next President of the United States, Hillary Clinton.
That was so great. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Bryce. And I just was thinking back to that day when I first met you. And when I started campaigning here in Iowa, I did spend a lot of time in small groups listening to people, because I actually think there's lots we all can learn from listening to each other, and particularly for someone asking for your support to be your next president. But I was so taken by what Bryce was saying, because what he was describing was not unique to him. You know, young people across our country are interested in being entrepreneurs, are interested in being the next generation of small business owners. And Bryce's story was so touching, because this is the community where he grew up. This is where he worked as a young man, high school and college. And he cared so much about what this business provided to Adel, and the way that it was a gathering place, it was a place for family fun. And he was describing his dream of someday owning it and then getting the chance to try to do that, and what he wanted to build because of it. That is the American dream, absolutely encapsulated by what you said, what you've done, and we've got to make sure that dream is available for the young people of our country. You know, many of us have had the opportunity to grow up in America at a time when we could see the promise and the potential. Of course, you have to work for it. Nothing's given to you. That's the basic bargain of America. You work hard, you do your part, you can get ahead and stay ahead. But we're making it awfully hard for people today, and particularly for young people. Because what's happened is so many young people are not getting the economic opportunities. They're not getting on those first rungs of the opportunity ladder. And it's made doubly hard if they are burdened with student debt. So I actually am here today because I wanted to thank Bryce in front of friends, family, customers, fellow Iowans for really lighting an idea in my mind about what was going to be needed to make sure young people in this country had the chance to follow their own dreams. So thank you, Bryce. Thank you for having me here with all of you. This caucus on Monday night truly is the first step on the road to who will be the next president and commander-in-chief. And I want to thank you, in addition to Bryce, for the time and attention that people across Iowa are paying to this campaign, because I know from my own experience that I've learned a lot, and I am grateful to Iowans for being willing to talk with me and offer ideas as we've traveled across the state. I know that I will be a better president because of what I've learned here in Iowa. And I am asking all of you to go to the caucus Monday night, because if you stand up for me then, I will stand up and fight for you as hard as I can to make sure we go forward together in America. But we have some work to do. Some of you are already signed up. You're working with my great organizers, Michael and Tyler and the team that is here. And I hope others of you who haven't yet made up your minds will decide to caucus for me and join the many, many Iowans across the state who have already decided to do that. And I wanted to lay out just a few of the stakes that I think this election represents for your consideration. Now, the biggest issue here at home is going to be how we get the economy working for everybody again, right? How we get incomes rising again. Because Americans need a raise. And I have an economic policy that puts raising incomes right at the center. But I want to start with a little bit of context here, because my views about what needs to be done to get our economy going are diametrically opposed to the Republicans. And that is going to be one of the biggest debates we will have leading up to the election next November. They stand there day in and day out and basically call for a return to the failed policies of trickle-down economics. Didn't work, can't work, won't work, but that doesn't stop them. They are consistent. Cut taxes on the wealthy, get out of the way of corporations, and let it all trickle down. Well, it trickled down all right. It came down in a flood called the Great Recession, didn't it? And folks are still digging themselves out. Now, my Republican friends on the other side, they don't like it when I say what is a historical fact. Our economy does better when we have a Democrat in the White House. That is absolutely proven. And, you know, we don't have to go back too far to know that. Our last two Democratic presidents, both of whom I know, each inherited economic problems from their Republican predecessors. In my husband's case, it was a recession. And it was the quadrupling of the national debt and an increasing deficit. And I remember when he got to Washington, somebody said, okay, so what are you uniquely going to bring to Washington to try to deal with this? He thought for a minute and he said, well, I guess arithmetic. We're going to have to make it add up for the American people. And that's what happened. At the end of 8 years, 23 million new jobs, but more importantly, even than all those new jobs, incomes went up for everybody, not just folks at the top. Middle-class families, working folks, poor people. We lifted more people out of poverty than at any other time in recent history. So what happened then? You would think, if you cared about evidence, if you looked at the facts, if you were elected president, or in the case of the 2000 election, selected president, you would maybe want to do what worked. But no, we were back to trickle-down economics with a vengeance. Cut taxes on the wealthy, get out of the way of regulating the financial industry, and in fact, I remember a picture of the man President Bush put in charge of the SEC, responsible for regulating Wall Street. He had a big grin on his face with a chainsaw going through cutting up regulations. Well, we know what happened, don't we? The worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. In comes another young, dynamic, Democratic president, President Obama. And look what he inherited from his Republican predecessors. We were losing 800,000 jobs a month. I went out to meet with him at his request because he wanted me to be Secretary of State. And he said to me, it's so much worse than they told us. And it was. We could have fallen into a Great Depression. The auto industry was on the brink of collapse, taking with it millions more jobs. And I don't think President Obama gets the credit he deserves from digging us out of the ditch that the Republicans put us in the first place. So what are we going to do now? Well, we've recovered jobs, about 14 million of them. We're standing, but we're not yet running the way we should. And that's why what I am proposing is how we're going to create good-paying jobs, how we're going to raise incomes, give people the chance once again to begin moving forward and to recover some of the loss that we're still living with from the 8 years of the Bush administration. So here's what I want to do. I want more jobs in infrastructure. Our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our ports, our airports, our rail systems, you name it, we are behind. And these are jobs that can't be exported. They have to be done right here in the United States. And I know that there are lots of ways of doing it. I've proposed something called a National Infrastructure Bank, because we just can't rely on the Republicans in Congress. You know, I guess they don't drive on the roads or cross the bridges. I don't know where they get around to, because they're not seeing what I'm seeing and what a lot of you are seeing. And it's kind of embarrassing. We don't even have one airport in the top 25 airports in the world. Now, what does that mean? It means we're not as competitive, we're not as productive, and we're not employing as many people as we could if we went right at this. Secondly, we have to change the tax code to get rid of every incentive for people to move jobs overseas, put in factories overseas, bring it back, make the investments here. And I know this can work in large measure because I've been going to your community colleges, and I want to thank the people of Iowa for supporting the places I've visited. They are really at the cutting edge of preparing people to do advanced manufacturing. I was up at Blackhawk Community College, has a partnership with UNI. They have the biggest 3D printer in North America. 3D printing is going to be one of the most important parts of advanced manufacturing in the world. And right here in Iowa, you are training people to be able to do that, to attract more jobs right here. I want to give the push, the tax incentives, so that more companies will look at coming to Iowa, investing in Iowa, creating more jobs again in Iowa. And I got to tell you, one of the fastest ways we're going to create jobs is by taking climate change seriously and investing in clean, renewable energy that will create millions of businesses, millions of jobs. And again, I got to thank the people of Iowa. You know why? Because when I go out and I say this, I say, okay, the Republicans, when you ask them about climate change, they always say, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, right? You've heard them say that? And I've been going around saying, well, you know, there's an easy way to remedy that. Go talk to a scientist. There are lots of them here in Iowa. You know, go to one of the universities or colleges. Heck, go to one of the high schools and talk to the science teachers, and they will tell you, you know what, this climate change, it's real. Now, they're still in denial because, of course, they got to do the bidding of the Koch brothers and their other funders who are trying to hold back reality in a way that is damaging to us. But here's the other part of it. Their denial prevents us from creating the jobs we can create in clean, renewable energy, because I will tell you, some country is going to be the 21st century clean energy superpower. It's either going to be China, Germany, or us, and I intend to make it us. And I know we can do this together. But, you know, sometimes when I say this, I sometimes see skeptical looks on people's faces around the country, and here's what I tell them, because I thank Iowa again. You are already getting 1/3 of your electricity from renewable energy, mostly wind. Thanks to visionary leaders, starting with your former governor, Tom Vilsack, but it's been Republican and Democratic. People have stayed with it, so you're now at 1/3 of electricity. You're going to go further. You already have 7,000 people in this state working in the wind industry. You're doing the research on advanced biofuels. The Defense Department is trying to figure out whether advanced biofuels can power our Navy ships and our Air Force.
Camera, but could you tell me why are refugees unhappy?
A growing number of Iraqi asylum seekers are choosing to leave Germany and return back to their war-torn country. I'm Joseph Nasser reporting for Reuters from A growing number of Iraqi asylum seekers are choosing to leave Germany and return back to their war-torn
raise the minimum wage so people working full-time don't end up in poverty, because that's no way to get ahead and get your kids ahead. And then finally, let's make sure we get equal pay for women's work, which will make a big difference, not just in women's incomes, but family incomes. Now, I got to tell you, everything I've just said, the Republicans don't agree with. It's truly like two alternative universes. I think we're living in reality. They're living in ideology, so we got to take them on. And that means we've got to go right after the tax code. And here's what I've proposed. First, I'm the only candidate on either side who has said, I will fight to raise your wages. I will not raise middle-class taxes. I won't do it because I want the middle class to be able to save and to build, and I want to go where the money is. You know where the money is? The money's at the top. We've got to close the loopholes, stop all the gimmickry that the wealthy and corporations engage in. I've been after something called the carried interest loophole for years, and we're going to get it done. But then we got to go further. You know, I was proud that Warren Buffett endorsed me the other day. I was over in Omaha with him, and he's not too popular among all of his, rich friends because he's saying rich people need to pay more taxes. And I'm in the amen corner. Guess what? They do. And he has something he calls the Buffett rule. If you make $1 million, you should have to pay a 30% effective tax rate. The days have to be over where somebody making $1 million or more is actually paying a lower tax rate than a secretary, a nurse, a firefighter, a police officer, a teacher. And I'm going to implement the Buffett rule. It is time to say enough is enough. But I want to go further because I don't think that is enough yet. I want to impose what I call a fair share surcharge, 4% on people making $5 million or more. Now, there aren't very many of that income bracket in our country, but that would raise a lot of money. And that's what I would use to make college affordable, to invest in clean energy, to work toward paid family leave so families can have the benefit of being able to get some time with a child, a newborn, a sick relative, to do the most important work any of us do in caring for each other. And I know that if we go after that, there is, on my mind, a direct political path to success. Here's what I would like to see. I'd like to see members of Congress stand up and say, I think I'll protect the one person making $5 million or more in my congressional district instead of making college affordable, or instead of doing paid family leave, or instead of investing in new jobs. I'm ready for that argument. You want to stand with the wealthy against our own people? Let's take it to them. And I also have a very clear idea about how to make sure what happened to us in 2007 and 8 doesn't happen again. And, both my esteemed opponents, Governor O'Malley, Senator Sanders, and I, are absolutely clear on this. We will not let Wall Street wreck Main Street again. Contrast that with the Republicans. You know what they say? They say, well, it wasn't too little regulation on Wall Street, it was too much. That's what I mean about alternative reality. So we agree that we can't let that happen again. And we also agree we can't let the big banks pose a risk to our economy. But here's what I want you to know. We already have a law called Dodd-Frank to go after the big banks if they do pose a systemic risk. And I've been very clear, no bank is too big to fail, no executive too powerful to jail. If they are posing a risk, I will use the authority that exists under Dodd-Frank. And both of my opponents have said the same. But here's where we differ. I don't think that's enough. Because I want you to remember it wasn't just the big banks, and we're watching them very closely now. It was an investment bank, Lehman Brothers. It was a big insurance company, AIG. It was Countrywide Mortgage. It was another bank called Wachovia, and others who are part of the non-traditional banking sector and what's called the shadow banking sector. We can't let them wreck the economy either. So I have put forth a plan to go after those potential problems, and everybody who's looked at it says it is the toughest, most effective, comprehensive plan to prevent what happened to us before from ever happening again. Now, people like Barney Frank of Dodd-Frank, Paul Krugman, others have said that, but I'll give you the best evidence as to why my plan to go after Wall Street is the toughest plan. It's because the Republicans are advertising against me. Just stop and think about this. These are guys who try to make smart investments. Started with 2 hedge fund billionaires, formed their own super PAC, began attacking me. Karl Rove followed up, took money from the financial industry, started an ad to attack me. And then just the other day, another billionaire called Joe Ricketts puts up an ad to try to really muddy the waters, to confuse Democrats about who has the toughest, most comprehensive plan. Now, I got to tell you, I do find this perversely flattering. But I also find it very instructive, because if they weren't afraid of me, they would be sitting back just hoping I'd get nominated. But instead, they know me. They know I say what I mean to do what I say, and I will never let them do what they did to us before. So they're trying to stop me before I get too far. Well, a lot of folks have tried to take me out before, and I'm still standing. And I'm going to go right at them and make sure that they can't hurt us anymore. But I want to mention another outrage that I'm focused on, because this one is really, this is new, and this is wrong. Okay, there's a company in Wisconsin called Johnson Controls. Now, among the things they make parts for the auto industry. During the Great Recession, when President Obama said, we got to save the auto industry, the Republicans said, let it fail, Johnson Controls was one of the companies that begged the administration and the Congress to help bail out the auto industry. Now, it was done for the right reason, saving all those jobs, and now the auto industry is back on its feet and new products, and it's kind of got an exciting future ahead. So Johnson Controls goes to Washington, says, please, American taxpayers, save us. And the auto industry, the suppliers, the jobs were saved. Okay, so just in the last few days, Johnson Controls announces it's going to pretend to sell itself to a company in Europe to escape paying taxes to the United States government. It's called an inversion. I think it should be called a perversion. Here is as direct an example of what's wrong with the thinking and acting of American corporations that we could get. Because here's a company that all of us in this room helped to save their business. They were happy to take that help from all of you, regardless of how hard it was for you during that time, because you understood we got to save jobs, we've got to grow this part of our economy, not let it die. And now they want to move overseas for the sole purpose of escaping their fair share of taxes to support what made them be a company that was successful in the first place. The rule of law, the contract system, our judicial system, the support we give to training people, all that you and I have contributed in previous generations, they are willing to walk away in order to pay a lower tax instead of doing what they should to support our country to grow and be prosperous and strong in the future, and it is wrong. So, you know, don't just focus on one thing in this campaign. We've got to take all of these abuses on. We have to go after everybody who is trying to undercut American prosperity and America's future. And I will do everything I can to prevent this from happening, because I don't want to see companies that thrived use the tax code, the gimmicks, the shenanigans that unfortunately are still in it to evade their responsibility to support our country. And I'll tell you something else. We've got to be focused on making progress together. There's no clearer example of that than health care. You know, before it was called Obamacare, it was called Hillary Care. Some of you remember I fought really hard to get us to universal coverage, and I wasn't successful. I didn't stop there. I turned around, worked with Republicans and Democrats to create the Children's Health Insurance Program, which insures 8 million kids, because I knew that denying children health care was a lifelong sentence. They weren't helped when we needed them, like that beautiful little child back there who's rocking with his mom. If we didn't do that, then we wouldn't have the kind of country we should. So we made progress. And I was thrilled when President Obama passed the Affordable Care Act. Absolutely thrilled. We've been trying to do that since Harry Truman was president. It's been one of the goals of the Democratic Party for that long. So where are we? Well, I'll tell you where we are. We have 90% of people covered. The Republicans want to repeal it. They keep voting to repeal it. They actually succeeded in sending a repeal bill to President Obama about 2 weeks ago, and thankfully he was there to veto it. But make no mistake, if they get a Republican president, it'll be gone in, the first weeks. They never tell you what they will put in its place because you know what? They'll just go back to the way it was. You have a pre-existing condition, you're out of luck. You're a woman, you pay more than men. You're under 26, you don't get to be on your parents' policy. And I met a man in Davenport yesterday who came up and said to me, I really want to tell you how much I support the Affordable Care Act. He said that one of his granddaughters had a congenital heart condition. She's 5 years old. She's had 5 open heart surgeries. Because of the Affordable Care Act, the insurance company could not impose a cap on their lifetime spending. They could never have afforded the operations to keep that little girl alive without the Affordable Care Act. So I've said, okay, let's hold on to the progress we've made, but let's make it better. I want to get the costs down. Out-of-pocket costs are too high. Prescription drug costs are too high. So we need to go after the problems to make sure that the Affordable Care Act is truly affordable and providing quality care. But it's a lot easier to get from 90% coverage to 100% coverage than starting over. And again, Senator Sanders and I share the same goal. We both want universal coverage. He has a different idea, and I fear it would lead to gridlock, not action. It would throw us into a contentious national debate that would not move us forward, and I don't think the people I've met in Iowa can wait. Over the weekend in Clinton, I met a woman who's been taking the same drugs since 1988. When she started, it was $20 a shot. She has to have 10 shots a month. She went to pick up her prescription end of last year. Pharmacist said it's going to cost you more than $14,000 for the same 10 shots. What's happening? I'll tell you what's happening. There is a trend for speculators, for hedge fund guys, to buy up drug companies that have old drugs that are essential to people's life and quality of life, and then to increase the price as much as their greed will let them. That's predatory pricing. There are a couple of companies that are doing it in the most egregious way, and we've got to stop it. I think we have the legal tools to stop it, and I will use them. But overall, drug companies are increasing prices because they don't have to negotiate in America for a lower price. Again, we taxpayers, we pay for the National Institutes of Health. We pay for the Food and Drug Administration. We support a lot of the research that is done that leads to new drugs. And then the drug companies turn around and charge us more than anybody else in the world for the same drugs. How do we fix that? First, we have to require that they negotiate with Medicare for lower prices. Once Medicare gets that authority, that will have a downward pressure on drugs. The only institution we have in the country right now that has that authority is the VA, because even the Republicans couldn't stand up and favor the drug companies over our veterans. But it needs to be in Medicare, and we need to make sure we keep a close look on drug prices. And then the other piece of this, which is kind of an interesting little aside, is they get a tax benefit for advertising on television. Now, you've all seen those ads. You can't miss them. They all look the same, don't they? They have the people walking through the field of wildflowers or walking on the beach. They have the name of the drug, which is unpronounceable, on the screen. They got music playing, and then like in this low little voice underneath, it says things like, if you take this drug, your nose will fall off. And they get a tax break for doing that. They're actually spending more money on advertising than on research. So we've got to take that away from them. And then, when the drug companies say, oh my gosh, she'll stop research, I'm saying to the contrary. I'm going to stop your tax benefit for advertising so you actually have more money to put into research. I think that is a very good outcome because we do want new treatments, new drugs that can keep people alive. So we have a contrast. We have repeal from the Republicans. We have start all over again with a whole new system. And the kind of gridlock that I think that would pose. And what I want to do is let's build on what has worked. Now, across Iowa, I have heard a lot of other issues. Let's take affordable college. I have a plan to lead to debt-free tuition. And it also requires students to work 10 hours a week. Because I actually think you value your education more if you do some work for it. I did. I borrowed money to get through law school, and it really did help me to understand, what I had to do to get my education. I think it's also important we make colleges and universities take a hard look at what they're charging. Tuition's gone up 40%. You cannot convince me that all those costs are directly related to preparing young people to go out in the world to find their future. And states have disinvested in higher education. They've taken money, they've put it into roads and prisons and not colleges and universities. And I think we can do a better job. So I'm advocating debt-free tuition because I worry with the call for free college for everybody, including billionaires, which I do not approve of. If you can afford it, you should pay. But the vast majority of Americans can't. And if all you do is put more money in the system, you're never going to go after the costs. I want this to be a compact. Colleges and universities have to do their parts. States have to do their parts. Young people have to do their parts. And we will make it possible. And then separately, we're going to go after the debt that already exists, debt that Bryce told me about back in April. If you can refinance your mortgage or your car payment, you sure ought to be able to refinance your student debt. And students will be able to save tens of thousands of dollars. And this applies to families, to parents and grandparents who have signed on and gotten student debt. You should have the same opportunity. And it's hard to believe. I was in Decorah yesterday. We have not even had much in the way of interest rates, have we, for years? And I asked students, okay, how many of you have ever had student debt? Okay, everybody here who's ever had student debt. All right, let's raise your hand. A lot of people here. How many of you know whether you're paying an interest rate of more than 8%? Anybody? Are you? Bryce is. Okay. You guys are? What are you paying? 11. This is unconscionable, my friends. And so we're going to allow people to refinance. We're going to shift people away from these high interest rate loans. This young woman in Decorah said, I borrowed $14,000 to get my degree, and I thought I could manage it. With the interest, it's now $25,000. This is wrong. And I'll tell you another thing. The federal government should not be making a profit off of lending money to students to get their education. So we got a lot of work to do, and I'm excited by what I've learned across the state. And people ask me about all kinds of things, and I just want to quickly tell you what I have been told that I was not prepared for when I showed up back in April. Mental health not being taken care of. Programs for people with disabilities being cut back, especially here in Iowa, which had one of the model programs with your governor's new proposal to shift everything over to a private system for Medicaid, which covers a lot of people with disabilities of all ages. And in fact, 2 of the companies that he wants to turn that business over to are being investigated in Kansas because what they've done is not try to help people, but throw them off of Medicaid so they don't have to pay for them. I've had the most heart-wrenching conversations across this state, particularly with mothers of children with disabilities. Yes, you have that. And you don't know where you're going to go. You don't have any idea whether you can get coverage for the programs that you've worked so hard to put together. This is just wrong, my friends. We are a better nation than this. I've also heard a lot about addiction, opioid addiction, heroin addiction, still meth in a lot of rural parts of the state. We don't really have a system to take care of that either. We've got to switch from just taking anybody who ever uses drugs and sending them to jail, working with our law enforcement officials, to trying to give them a chance to go into some kind of treatment and recovery, but we don't have enough treatment and recovery programs. So we're kind of in a catch-22. Now, I've talked a lot about this throughout the campaign, and there's some good ideas out there, but we've got to get together because right now more people are dying from drug overdoses than car accidents. This is an epidemic, and in some states, like New Hampshire, where I also spend a lot of time, it is swept the entire state. There's no group immune from what is happening there. So we've got to have a concerted effort, better prevention, better treatment, getting law enforcement to partner with us to try to move people into programs that could help, having every police department, fire department, college dorm have the antidote to opioid heroin overdose so we can save lives. I honestly didn't realize what a big problem this was until I rolled into Iowa and my first meeting in Davenport and my last meeting in Council Bluffs, when I said to the groups of folks I was talking and listening to, okay, what else is on your mind? You know, the economy, of course, student debt, of course, mental health and addiction. I want you to know I am committed to doing all aspects of the job of President and Commander-in-Chief. And that includes the economy, it includes these problems that are affecting people's lives, and it certainly includes our national security and our foreign policy. And I'll just end with a few comments on that. I was very honored when President Obama asked me to be Secretary of State, and we worked really hard those 4 years because, just like with the economy, we inherited a lot of problems. And one of the problems we inherited was, frankly, Iran. It was under the Bush administration that Iran mastered what's called the nuclear fuel cycle, began building secret facilities, stocking them with centrifuges, spinning away. So what we'd been doing clearly hadn't worked. So we took a different approach. I began working to put together a coalition to impose global sanctions on Iran, to get them to the negotiating table to see if we could put a lid on their nuclear weapons program. And you know what? It's long, slow work. It took 18 months. We got it done. Then I had to convince countries not to violate it. And then I began to do the first outreach to see whether there was a basis for negotiation. And Secretary Kerry picked it up and ran with it and got it done. We are safer because we have this agreement. But we are not safe enough because we have to worry about the other bad stuff Iran does. And we have to worry about terrorism, particularly ISIS. But there are other networks of terrorists out there. And we need to understand that a president never knows what's going to be coming to the White House. You know, President Obama gave an interview the other day, and he said, look, you can have all the plans in the world, but you can be sitting, as he was, at his desk in the Oval Office writing his State of the Union address, and an aide came in and said, you know, Mr. President, the Iranians have just captured 2 of our naval vessels, and they're holding 10 of our sailors hostage. You can't say, you know what, I'll get to that tomorrow. You got to say immediately, okay, let's what are we going to do? You got to have the experience and the understanding of what needs to be done. I spent a lot of hours in that Situation Room. I was there as that small group advising the president whether to go after bin Laden based on the intelligence we had. We spent hours sorting it out, even arguing about it. Not all of his advisors were in agreement. But I advised that it was absolutely essential we keep going after bin Laden, bring him to justice for what he did to our country, and that we had good plans from the special forces, and if we thought it all through, it was worth the risk, but it was a risk. There's no easy choices in this arena. And I will pledge to you that I will promote our values and our interests and keep us safe and protect the men and women in uniform and their families. So when I've laid out my policy about going after ISIS, I've said it will not include American combat troops on the ground in either Syria or Iraq. We have to take territory back by supporting Arab and Kurdish fighters and from the air. And we've got to go after their foreign funding and what they do online and all of their other propaganda. But we also have to be united against this threat at home. And I want to make this point. You know, after 9/11, since I was a senator, I was deeply involved in doing everything I could to help families whose loved ones had been killed and to rebuild the city, and also to keep an eye on the threats that were coming our way still. And one of the best things we did in New York was a campaign which said, if you hear something, report it. If you see something, report it. Because the police, no matter how vigilant they are, they can't be everywhere. They need active citizens to call in those suspicions, to make it clear, hey, something's happening here that I'm not quite sure about. I'm a little worried. And thankfully, we had so much citizen support and such good cooperation that we have been able to avoid another terrible attack there. And here's what I want you to understand. I will do everything in my power to keep us safe at home from terrorism. But when the Republicans insult and denigrate American Muslims, that's not only shameful, it's dangerous. Because we need every single person in this country to stand with us against the threat of terrorism, and that includes our American Muslim friends and neighbors. And if we're going to form a coalition to defeat ISIS, we need Muslim nations. I know something about putting together coalitions. It does not help you if a leading Republican candidate for the presidency of the United States is denigrating their religion when we go and say, help us be part of the coalition to defeat ISIS. It matters what you say when you are running for president, and it really matters when you are president. The rest of the world pays close attention. So, my friends, I just can't thank you again for being here this morning, being part of this process, helping to pick the next president of the United States. You get the first chance to speak up in the entire world about what you're looking for. And I would be deeply honored and grateful to have your support Monday night. And I will work my heart out to do everything I can to make sure every person, especially every young person in our country, has the chance to live up to his or her God-given potential.